Greetings, dear ones, and welcome to another episode of Re Evolutionary or Revolutionary Revelations. This is a new series that I started, I can't remember, back at the middle of last year, because it did seem like we are not only in the midst of this evolutionary leap as never before done in this way in the universe, but also, an evolution within each and every one of us. And I use that word very specifically because it is not enough to simply transform, which oftentimes, particularly in healing circles or spiritual circles, can mean to modify or to change some aspects of us. And that is wonderful. And for all those who, are exploring those paths through means that allow them to come to know themselves even more so and to make different choices, that's wonderful. Most of my clients, however, are on a mastery course, a soul mastery project or course, however you want to refer to it. And that doesn't mean advanced, it doesn't mean better, it doesn't mean more anything. It simply means that they have chosen a particularly large project or have chosen multiple large aspects of the soul's exploration, their soul's exploration, to actually achieve something that perhaps they haven't ever before, in a physical form, and or perhaps they've really explored every single angle and now kind of want to complete or close that folder and explore another soul aspect. And how that shows up in this current 3D reality that we're in is someone who has oftentimes done a great deal of work already and yet are coming up against still the same walls, seemingly the same walls. But in this particular instance, it is an invitation, or their soul is inviting them to take it deeper further, which is why in the proprietary process that was developed between my guides, my trainings, all of my schooling, etc., in multiple disciplines, why that process is able to take someone extremely deeply, very, very quickly, because it is not going through the brain. The brain is where your defense system lives, and that is going to try to stop you from going into those deeper feeling states because it is protecting a little child from feeling the intensity of those emotions and experiences. But you are now an adult, and your soul chose those particular wounds to be able to have an opportunity to go deeper and deeper and deeper into the root of the root, not only to reclaim your human self, but the piece of you that got stashed away in the process of that initial childhood wounding. But moreover, it was you designed it in such a way that it would allow for you to live a soul level, highest, widest, most expansive experience. In other words, anything that took you away from you, that caused you to disconnect from yourself, which all our wounds do, and then ultimately to come to such a depth of connectedness to not only your personality self, but all of the different aspects of you humanly, but also aspects of you from beyond this human experience, so that you are actually living these other worlds, realms, kingdoms, planets where you are connected through into this physical human life. So that means being able to channel through all of these different qualities, characteristics, abilities, knowledge, skills, many of which are immediate creation skills or immediate creation methods. And because this evolutionary process is going so fast, I mean, we all are experiencing, we can't, our heads are spinning from the different ways in which what we thought, what we felt was somewhat stable and somewhat foundational in our world, in our nation, in our families, in our economic and physical lives, that it is necessitating an equal or greater energy of creation. And that's where the birthing comes in that I'm referring to in the title, the new birth. Because for this particular evolutionary leap, I did call it a leap before, but now now I haven't the word actually for the massive size of the leap, because this is not just a modification. That's why renewal, readjusting, rebuilding, none of those words, none of those concepts are going to work for the amount of evolutionary difference that is going on right now and that we have called in and chosen to participate in, chosen to be a significant and purposeful player in, as a matter of fact. Because we are actually changing human nature. This is not a question of adjusting our behavior, modifying our behavior, getting our thoughts straight, being able to create, something that is going to get us through. This is, as you can see around the world, old forms, old organizations, institutions, concepts, ideas are being burnt to the ground. And that means building completely anew. And so those that are on what I've referred to as a mastery course or doing a soul mastery project or multiple are actually here as part of, primarily for their own benefit, but their own process of evolution, of let's call it in an individual transmutation, transfiguration, or even metamorphosis, is allowing for the genetic rebuilding, or in many cases, we have so much in our DNA that has not been accessed. So it's literally birthing new aspects of our DNA. Greg Braden speaks a great deal about that in his way. And this depth of change, there are people that are kind of out front, they're trailblazers. And then each person is going to be changing, transforming to whatever extent they can, they choose to. And that creates the wide path behind those trailblazers out in front. And again, no better. There is no hierarchy in this universe. It simply is different experiences. There are those that have a wider range of and a greater expertise in this particular universe, and particularly on this planet in its adventure of exploration. But we are all equal in this universe. We are all individuations of the one, to allow the one, if you will, to know itself in our own particular, unique flavors and forms that we have explored as individuations throughout our soul's constant seeking, constant exploration, constant adventure. So that's a little bit of background to what we're focusing on today, of this new birth, this newness that must come from within, this new activation of aspects of our DNA, new ways of living, new ways of being, primarily new ways of being who we are, without the restrictions, without the limitations that we have had throughout history. Because simply we were exploring a particular form of duality and separation, and we have taken it to its absolute limit. The next step would be World War III, or blowing ourselves up, nuclear explosion, and many others. And that's just, we've done that in many other ways, in many other planets. It's boring. This is something different. So the depth of newness is truly, truly, truly unlike anything in the universe, because approximately 2 years ago, a new universal, or new origin concept of the universe came through. And that's like way back of the universe, and universe of universes, back even to the one. And that means completely new laws of physics and much more that will create a new universe, giving us on this planet an opportunity for the new Earth. So, there's always, if you've ever seen or listened to any of mine or read any of my work before, you may know I refer often to what is the collective consciousness theme, the current collective consciousness theme. And this week, it's been really fascinating to encounter clients coming in with different apparent issues, and ultimately it coming through in their work and reveals that current collective consciousness that goes along with transpersonally, in the Jungian perspective, with what's going on a national scale and even a global scale. So one of my clients was dealing with a lot of grief over miscarriage from many years ago, and the loss of the potential for having that child, and having what she had previously come to believe was her dream of life. In her particular instance, family, home, husband, etc. And within the last couple of years, all of that was blown up. All of it fell away. All of what she had perceived to be who she was, and what she wanted out of life, and what she wanted from life. And it was really, really interesting that she related that she's in a place right now of not knowing, if the old has been deconstructed or has been dissolved, and she does not know then yet who she is becoming. And that's, the depth of work that she's doing in our sessions, is allowing that true self, that natural self, the essence self to come forth. And so she's in this discomfort she described of, the in-between place. And, yet at the same time, as she reclaims pieces of herself, as she begins to live more and more aligned, not aligned, but from that essence self, her true desires, her true dream, if you will, is birthing. So that was really interesting. And then I'm working with another client who is actually the leader of, if you will, or head of a particular spiritual community. And that spiritual community had a particular form with a particular set of leadership and with in a particular setting, and that is no longer feasible. It's no longer fitting for them, and so they are creating something completely new out of that dissolution and dismantlement of the old way, of the old forms. And again, it's in this in between state, you know. And she is an amazing being who is, you know, is so aware of the work, and aware of how this all works, how the big larger picture works, and that they are completely intertwined, both her individual work and that of, you know, the larger body, and that of the you know, our country. So there's a new birthing going on there. And another client, was terrible that this occurred to her, but fascinating. And she was able to see that she owns a second home that she rents, and it has had the most massive plumbing. I mean, from the biggest pipes that go in and out of the house to a toilet situation with an angry renter. It is just fascinating. All the ways into her house, and all the ways in for fresh water and clean, you know, flow, and all the ways out of her home of that detrimental sewage, even, you know, deadly aspects. And she has found herself really stuck for quite some time of not being able to make the changes that she wants. Changes, make the transfiguration that she has deeply wanted for decades. She's studied, she's done work in so many different areas, and yet finds herself stuck in this old, because she is clinging so tightly to the old wounds and the old ways, and having to just work at it, and I mean, work at her life, and more crisis, and using her strength to deal with it, her strength and her will, and it's just not working anymore, because there isn't any area of her life that there isn't chaos and problems and people coming at her and loss. It's just utterly amazing how that clinging so tightly to the way we think we can control, whether it's our lives or whether it's the national and global stage. And right now we are in the midst of that control state, wherein the old way of this world, that pyramidal structure you've heard me speak about so often, where very, very few at the top own the resources or access to the resources, control them, have actual power through that, and the people are constantly being squished, the base of the pyramid, being oppressed, being limited, being held down and held back. And this is the first time in history that we actually have the ability to change that entirely, to change that whole pyramidal structure into something completely different. It is falling, but those few at the top are desperately scrambling to be able to maintain that control. This is why we see such a push for um, the dominance in fossil fuels and LNG, liquid gas, and mining of ores and metals that are limited on this planet, even though we're finding more and more and more pockets and sources. If we continue to go in that direction, maintaining that pyramidal structure with a very few having the control of resources, then we're very aware of the destruction to the planet, to the environment, to nature, and that directly affects us. But never throughout history has the small group at the top ever concerned themselves with anything other than their lifetime of accumulation. There is no thought to tomorrow. There is no thought to other generations. There is only what I can grab and have in my control right here and now. Again, whether it's been emperors, popes, kings, conquerors, generals, it's always been the same story. But now, for the first time in history, because we have access, wide access to information that's happening in the moment, information that is being shared between and amongst different disciplines, that is allowing for knowledge that we could not have several years ago, even a few years ago. And yes, through AI, information through AI. Now, once again, it is not something inherently bad. It can be used for this process of revolution and new birth, or it can be used very destructively, again, to control. Primarily, the factor that is most destructive around data and AI right now are the data centers. And the data centers are utilizing massive amounts of electricity and water, costing the communities around them, costing their whole environment, and aspects around that. But again, it's only destructive because they are utilizing fossil fuels and very controllable means of accessing that electricity. Were we to move towards and be based in completely renewable energies, that would not be a problem. Excess, again, an article came across my desk today that Spain and other countries in Europe, they are having to curtail, they're having to cut back, stop the production from their wind and solar sources because it's too much. It is overpowering the grids. So once again, there are so many sources and resources for renewables. It doesn't even have to be owned by large groups. Another beautiful example of that came across my desk this week from Nigeria, where they have been utilizing mini solar panels on rural areas. And prior to this, it's been very difficult to use those mini solar panels because of its transduction down into the grids, the larger grids. But they have developed a way, and now for quite some time, those mini solar panels have been actually generating electricity without cost to the poorer population of the country, and as well the rural, those that are outside of cities. So again, this is another solution. We have so many countries that the populations are moving to the cities for the opportunities and for the comforts, and yet here is one of so many different ways where we can not overcrowd our cities, where we can actually live and do farming and live in rural settings without the limitations of the past. Another thing that was wonderful to see for me was there were greenhouses that were using particularly treated glass, and the yield on the vegetables, on the lettuces, etc., was exponential just from going from glass to this treated glass. It wasn't exactly a solar panel, but it was something that generated more sunlight into the greenhouse. There are thousands of solutions all around us, and constantly more being developed to either clean up or to resolve any of our issues on the planet. But the difference being that in the past, and what is attempting to be done again now, is that those few, that little percent at the top is of that pyramid, is attempting to suppress and limit by funding and control the knowledge that is and will become free, always has. So the battle, if you will, is for our freedom and the cessation of the old form, of this pyramidal form, and true freedom and equality for everyone. It was really wonderful to begin the week with the Tasuna, 4 different tribes, 3 of which were represented here this past week. I was working with them for almost an entire week, and I have done for over 6 years when I encountered them physically, and quite some time ago. And I've worked with them online as well with their teachings that are amazing. And they went through a birthing process for all those members of the ceremony that day. And these are these 4 different tribes were never conquered by the Spanish. As a matter of fact, they were pretty much unknown except to a small portion of Colombia itself, even in their own country, because they lived deeply in the Sierra Madre Mountains. And about 20 years ago, they were told by their origin peoples, by their creator beings that they work very directly with. This isn't, something very non-physical. They do ceremony to be able to bring these beings forward into the physical so that there is a direct interaction. The Hopi with the Kachinas is the same philosophy, the same perspective. And most cultures have origin stories. They have origin beings. The Aboriginals, who their origin beings walked the earth that made the valleys and the mountains and the different landscapes. Excuse me. And it is fascinating to me that we have the opportunity that these and many other tribes that were pretty much unknown or well hidden, let's say, are coming forth. They're being told by their greatest origin beings and creator beings to come forward and bring this knowledge to those that are unaware, those that have not had access to this knowledge. And it's not just the knowledge, it's the energetics. So throughout the ceremonies last week with the Tasuna, they were calling forward, inviting forward these creation beings. Again, as I've experienced in many other indigenous settings, ceremonies. And at the same time, I've been working with colleagues and we have experienced this new origin concept of the universe. It's the closest wording that I can come up with. And that is literally a new universe is being created with new physics laws, new forms, and finally, after 2 years, we are experiencing it now on this planet. We are experiencing it, well, not quite, but getting closer and closer. It's the only place I believe in trickle down. It is trickling down this new everything from the basic laws of physics and our natural laws to even how planets and different cosmic structures are dissolved and created anew. So this is an immense opportunity, which is why, of course, you as a great soul chose to be here right now. And does it feel like crap? Absolutely, because this planet is unique. We as humans are unique in the breadth and width and extent of sensations, of physical, mental, emotional, energetic sensations we can experience here, all simultaneously, by the way. So, yes, does it entail us feeling that? Yes. And therein lies the direct and deliberate and perfection of design of our wounding that we created, so that because it's only as a child that you will experience the depth and intensity and profundity of that destructive end of the spectrum, so to be able to transfigure and even metamorphosize that aspect to become not only who you came in as in your natural essence being, but also to be able, as I said earlier, to channel in those existences that are connected directly to your life this time. Because it takes that much complexity, that much diversity, that much variety, that many different forms of energies to be able to make the level of change, that the evolutionary leap that we have, that we're shooting for. And it becomes an alchemical mix, and I found it just breathtakingly beautiful. I'm watching all of this birthing going on, the creation coming from these creation and origin sources all the way out to the universe and beyond. And I had the great good pleasure of attending Ken Burns' an interview of him yesterday live here in Camden at the Wells Fargo Center, and a preview of his new work on the American Revolution, which I highly encourage you. It's on PBS, of course, this incredible source of public information and education that has allowed us for 60 years or whatever it's been to have access to non-partisan, non-colored information. and it continues to do so. Ken Burns was 10 years in the process of creating this. I think it's a 6-part, 8-part, 2-hour series that will be beginning November 16th. Please mark your calendars, because it is not only, oh, huge emotion coming through. It is not only vital to know about the birthing of this amazing experiment of democracy, but also it so kind of replicates what we're going through right now. And many of us only receive a very either surface or high point teachings in school of what all was going on with our country before it was a country, before the revolution. And it is so insanely complex. The multitude of factors, the wide diversity of aspects of perception, of perspectives, of reasons why people were choosing this new way of living, this throwing off of one absolute power controlling versus many having the freedom to choose their lives. It was just, it was snippets, it was little clips from, I think it is 6, from all 6 episodes. And then the interviewer was asking him just amazing questions about the revolution, about different groups within that process, whether it was women, whether it was freed and enslaved African Americans, or at that point, people of color, just the wide diversity that was at play, the diversity of reasons why, the diversity of different groups playing off each other or being in opposition to one another. The individual choices to stay with the monarchy versus what were called patriots, what were real patriots. Patriots meaning that they aligned with this form of freedom. And it was truly striking that so many, not only diverse, and it was extremely ugly. It was extremely messy. It was extremely bloody. It was extremely unknown, and just kind of going along as they could. And it was just utterly amazing how many factors are still at play right here and right now in our country and in the world, for that matter. And what was birthed out of that, and how it is being attempted to be dismantled even now, and to go back to an authoritarian or dictatorship, where there is absolute power held by one or a few. And what questions we must ask ourselves of what do we truly want? What are we willing to do? What are we willing to sacrifice? What are we willing to stand in to be able to follow through on those deeper desires, those purer essence aspects of us? And those same questions, those same challenges, those very same battles go on within us of, as I said with my client earlier, the one that has all the plumbing issues, how much chaos, how much discomfort, how much limitation, how much spiritual, emotional, even physical pain are we going to tolerate before we say enough? I don't care what I must do. I must change within, which is the only way this larger picture is actually going to change. Do we need to take actions? Yes. Does that mean everyone out in the streets protesting? No. That is for many, and that is their way. But so too, just like in the American Revolution, there were people who were gathering wood. There were women who were washing out, you know, the uniforms of the dead soldiers, washing the blood out of them so that those that were still fighting could have something to wear, as their clothes were in tatters from so many long years. And again, that's something that we forget, how many years this went on. Strangely enough, 1010, today's date, has always held a fascination for me for many different reasons, but I decided to explore a little if there was any other significance. In modern day, it has become Mental Health Day, but it just so happens that it also is the date of what's considered the first battle of the American Revolution that took place at Point Pleasant in 1774. And the American Revolution did not end, the actual physical fighting did not end until, I believe, 1883. Could have been longer. I am unclear on that date. So if anyone has that date or would like to post it either here or when this is posted on YouTube or DM me, please do so. I would love to be corrected. So it's fascinating that we are going through this personal re-evolution, that we're going through this national evolution, revolution. We're going through a global revolution. And this is being played out on the galactic and universal level as well, and we will talk about that another day. But know that it is not just politics. It is not just a small issue of any sort. They all are at play. They are all in play, mixing, churning, heating up, causing conflict, which creates friction, which allows the energy for this massive level of transfiguration that we're going to. And I am using the words transmute, transfigure, more for a personal perspective, an individual perspective, rather. On the larger perspective, we are birthing a nation. We are birthing a new nation. We are birthing a new world. And each of us are having the opportunity to birth themselves anew. Not just slightly adjust, but truly birth anew, more aligned, not more aligned, more from and as that true essence self, your true nature. And we have all of these origin beings, all of these creation stories that we can access and use as energetics to do so. And we are doing that today. All of these are already here. You may see behind me a beautiful piece right there directly that was created by an amazing Native American shaman and artist. And it is a skunk skin with other talisman, etc. within it. And the skunk has been so very present this week as a teacher, as a representative, and bringing forward his energy, its energy. And, you know, I'm familiar with what the skunk has represented for me all of these many years with the particular Native American tribes that I have aligned with for that knowledge, having a great deal to do with reputation and how stinky or not you are seen by others. But as I was doing more research and more exploration, it represents many, many things in many different cultures. And one of those was spiritual cleansing and authenticity, as well as inner balance with the black and white. And most striking to me was the non-violent protection. Because, as I mentioned earlier, the American Revolution and other revolutions around the world have been extremely bloody, extremely violent. And we are seeing that violence and cruelty all around the world. And that is one of those primal, base, lower level human nature aspects that are up for evolution. We cannot have those aspects of human nature as part of us as we're moving into the level of technology and knowledge and abilities that is right here before us, and so much more to come. So that is being born anew as humans in our human nature without those destructive, power hungry, greed, control, oppression by one another, oppression, all of those aspects we do to ourselves as well, which we cannot. That's why, in mentioning those other worlds or realms of us, we cannot have that inner battling. We cannot have that inner cruelty, as again with clients, so unaware of the way we say things that is so harmful, so hurtful to ourselves. And the reasons or the source where that came from is what has to be transmuted. The reason why we do that. It's not just a matter of changing our behavior and controlling it, because there is no end to that. But to actually go back to the origin place within where that got fixated, where that got set into our system, and we hold it in our bodies. We hold all of those traumas and those woundings in our body, in our energy field, in our emotional body. And that's the work that clients do when we're working individually, and even when we're doing groups, because to stay in the mental doesn't do what we need to do in order to make that depth of change. And that depth of change is very, 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 very scary, not only because it requires us to go into the unknown, but much like those many, many, many different groups and people in living here in before that we were the United States, living here in the colonies, that diversity, even all the many different Native American tribes that were involved, so many, going into not only the unknown, but the unknowable. And that's much scarier than going into the unknown, because this is something that has never been done before. And that's what clients encounter is, wanting to know how to do it, wanting to know the process, wanting to control, wanting to do, wanting to use their will or their mind. And when you're working in those deeper places within, there is, at the moment, unknowable. Now, the deeper you, the wider you does know. And that is our guide. That is each of our individual guides, is only our innate. And that came forward very strongly in the message today through the oils. So I just wanted to check and see. There were so many different things this week, of course. So I think we're going to stop here. Certainly, that was a massive amount of information, and hopefully, it gave you kind of an overview of what we're going through individually and what we are experiencing or have the opportunity to do nationally and globally. And for me, always that the largest or the most profound effect that we can have on the larger stages is by doing our work, individual work. The deeper you go, the wider the effects, not just on this world, but on your own family lineage, your heredity, the cultures that you come from, the species that we are in, as well as the relationship of man to the earth. So, without further ado, I invite you to settle in your chair or couch or I think for this one, yes, I would invite you even to lay down as long as you have, or lie down, as long as you have the ability for your spine to kind of be straight and to be able to breathe. And I'm going to bring forward the plant teachers. Again, everything on this planet and beyond is in on this evolutionary process. We are not alone by any means. We are never alone individually, and we are not alone as a species or and representatives of the entire universe, because that's what we are. So what was said through the plant teachers today was that as you feel the serenity within the essence of who you are, it will enable you to experience the unenslavement. I know that's not sure that's even a word, but that's what they said. The unenslavement of your sense of yourself. Surrendering to your soul's guidance. And anchoring into the warm and cozy and safe place that is your inner being, so that you may know the deep relief of standing in, living from, and speaking your truth. And thereby allowing the vast abundance of your love, your capacity for love, to radiate. And that the wisdom of your passion and creative abilities and power, true power, can come forth, walking the path of as the bridge between the new and the old, the human and the divine. So just settling in, and again, if you've ever done this with me before, you know I invite you to actually, excuse me, throw out your typical or practiced habits and means of going into meditation, and to instead invite and allow your body, your energy field, your wider self, which is your soul self, your emotional body, as well as your guides, teachers, masters, angels, all aspects of you, inviting all times of you, whether it's during this lifetime or those that you are concurrently working with this particular earth experience or through this particular earth experience. And I invite you to just breathe. No particular way, no particular rhythm, no particular practice. Just experience and feel the air moving in and out of your body. That fascinating process that we do not have to control, monitor, unless we choose to do a particular practice with it, but that it happens naturally, consistently, reliably. And as you're breathing, there's no purpose to it, just allowing. I invite you to sensate without tracking, without analyzing, without labeling, without even wording, how the breath, the air, the oxygen feels in any given area of your body. For as you know, it goes into and through the entire bloodstream, into and through and out of every single cell. So allow yourself to simply feel, to the extent that you can, the air, perhaps even all the way down to your toes, all the way out to your fingertips. And then, if you so choose, I invite you to extend the exhale a bit, longer than the inhale, which allows you, quite unconsciously, to activate the vagus nerve. Which oversees the autonomic nervous system and allows for a much deeper level of what I refer to as dropping in. And as each experience in this particular form of diving within is absolutely unique and different, I truly invite you to allow your system, body, energy field, wider self, emotional body, to lead you, to give you a previously unknown experience of you. For you to potentially connect to and incorporate And part of you you had possibly heretofore not known, not felt, not experienced. But no worries, no requirements. There is no goal in this process. The sacred geometric container has been building all week. I and all my people and many more have been continuously adjusting this container, your presence, all of those who would have liked to be present physically but could not, all of those that may listen in the future, all have been accounted for. All those many threads are already within this container. All parts of you, all challenges you are having right now, all of your people, your guides, teachers, masters, all are in this container. Particularly, excuse me, and very powerfully, I am really experiencing the origin beings of the Tisuna. I am very aware of some origin beings from different, I'm not hearing what area of Africa. And they each are placing themselves within this container for the optimal experience of those participating now, or as I said, in future. And they may come forward and speak, but you need not follow, need not track, need not even listen to the words I may be speaking or channeling. For this is not an experience through your brain or your mind, but through your body, through your energy field, through your wider self, which is your soul self. We have the beautiful animal teacher of the skunk. We have many seeds, seeds of change, true seeds, physical seeds of what may be your choice to plant. The seeds of ideas, the seeds of dreams, And underlying all is our freedom. Freedom to choose what we want to plant. Whether it's physically in the ground, in our lives, in our communities, in our country, on our planet. How breathtakingly magnificent is the simple fact that each one of us gets to choose. In this free will universe, nothing and no one decides, determines, dictates. Solely you. So the energetics are deepening right now. You may even feel yourself a little sleepy or fading in and out. I will continue to say words and speak so that you, on whatever level, are aware that we are continuing and that I am still here. But you need not follow, comprehend, compute, or otherwise think the words. Simply feel what is being transmitted through my voice as an avenue for all these many participants in the non-physical, you may even, if you've had any experience with altered states, such as the theta state, you may feel yourself in that state, similar to the in-between of being awake and asleep. Or another way that people experience that is still being able to hear and very faintly have a sense of physicality, but without experiencing the actual edges of you, of your body. truly allow yourself to drop ever more deeply within. There is nothing you need do to make that happen. There are energetics to guide, but moreover, your energy field and your wider self know how to do this, so you can hand over the steering wheel to those deeper places within you, trusting your own soul self, with simply the desire to receive. To receive perhaps an experience of you but certainly to receive the wide range and incredibly powerful origin energetics, allowing for a birthing anew. For each breath is a new experience of your body with the air it is taking in. Again, they're taking us a little bit deeper. For now, the energetics are moving through deeper levels of your physical being. The nervous system. The very nerve endings. As so often can happen with our systems, get caught in a loop or stuck like a broken record. Merely sensating, merely feeling, merely experiencing. How wonderful to be able to rely on and lean into these parts of you. And as we're beginning to integrate and embody that which has been present through this practice, I invite you to truly follow, allow yourself to be led by you, by your body, by your energy field, by your innate, which is your wider self. These aspects of you know exactly the right pace, the right timing, the right way, the right form for you to move from what was perhaps a less physical experience back to a more physical, consensus reality experience. Really taking your time. Simply because I said that, that does not mean to cease. It does not mean to start moving unless, only unless, your system is indicating for you to do so. Excuse me. Each person is very unique in their way. So you might float back more, have the sensation that you're floating back more to the surface, so to speak, and then falling back in and back to the surface. Other people experience themselves spiraling from the less physical to the more physical. Each person has their own way. Please allow your way. And you're also perfectly welcome to stay in the energetics whenever you do choose to presence yourself more in the physical. Know that all of these great teachers and wise masters have set up energetics so that you will be perfectly integrated and re-embodied, hopefully new, or in a new way, or having a new piece of yourself, a new something. And it's so such a privilege to be able to bring any of this knowledge and these energetics forward, I encourage you to just listen to the last section of the energetics. Just drop in as frequently as you choose. This will be posted here on Facebook for how long they allow it. It will also be posted on YouTube. And because, as I explained, we're going through such an accelerated process, I truly do encourage those who are just done with the way they have experienced life, done with the discomfort, with whatever it is that you're done with, to please reach out. I have various options for sessions. Even one session can make a huge difference because it is a very accelerated process. And yes, it would be my true honor to work with you. And in the meantime, please look for me here or on Instagram or what have you. I try to post, I'm going to post more about the individual evolution process, and hopefully shorter and quicker videos here and there, or reels or what have you. And in the meantime, until we encounter one another again in whatever form, in whatever location, in whatever way, please know that it is always with the deepest of honor, gratitude, and love for your presence here on the planet. Until next time, be well.